Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Wynne, the Town Clerk, and this is the first meeting of this committee. And the first item on the agenda is to elect a chair for this committee. Is there any proposals?
Can I propose Councillor Anne Hills?
And is there a seconder for that? Polly Lamb seconds it. All those in favour of Anne Hills as the chair of this committee?
I'm going to abstain.
That's by a majority. Anne is abstaining. And just for clarification, Anita isn't a member of this committee, so she doesn't vote. Would Anne like to take the chair? We have a very large table this evening.
Yes.
With the smaller number of people. I mean, if councillors wanted, we could take a section out and squidge up a bit if that would be helpful to anyone, or we just keep it as it is. It's up to you.
Right. As soon as everyone is comfortable, thank you for joining us tonight. This is the very first meeting of Frome Town Council's Operations and Assets Committee. I'm not going to shorten it. I'm Anne Hills and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Just to remind everyone, we've got people online and here in the room. For those in the room, some housekeeping. The emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room and the assembly point is on the far side of the car park. Toilets are at the far end of the corridor on the right, and there's an accessible toilet to the right of the lift. Help yourselves to a cup of tea if you've not already done so. Tonight, Paul is going to clerk, Rachel and Becca and Laura will manage the minutes, the questions board, participation settings and the IT generally. The meeting will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. For those councillors attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and for everyone else, ask questions through the Q&A board. First on the agenda is apologies for absence. Paul, have any been received?
Philip Campagna has sent us apologies.
Thank you. So, second on the agenda, we have...
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Thank you, Laura. We need to...
Oh, we need to vote for that.
Apologies. Yeah.
Can we vote to accept those apologies?
Proposed.
Proposed by Polly, seconded by Mel. All those in favour?
It's unanimous.
Thank you. And we also have any declarations of councillors' interest. So is there anything on the agenda that any councillors believe that they should declare an interest? If anything comes up during our discussions that you feel you need to declare, you can always do that at that point as well. So now we have questions and comments from the public and councillors. I don't think there's anything. Is there anything online? Thank you. So now we come to agenda item 4, to decide how to manage the market yard toilets. And I'm sure you've all read the paper. And I think, Rachel, you're going to guide us through this.
I am, sorry. Oh, that sounds really loud. Okay, so over the past year, we've seen the provision of the market yard toilets. We've been looking after them. And we've sort of gained valuable insights. We have found that the facilities are basically at the end of their operational life, and they're really costly to maintain and reliant on parts such as solenoids that are costly, but are practically, they're costly as in £1,000 each, but we're practically having to change them as consumables. And they're really difficult to source as well. Additionally, the toilets frequently become blocked, even with typical use, and they've become a focal point for antisocial behaviour, despite various things that we've tried. Longer-term full refurbishment, which is really what they need, will be a major investment, and so the long-term viability of providing that service will need to be carefully weighed up. So that's not really what well, it's not at all what we're deciding tonight, really. We were asked to take them on last March, or told that they would close in April regardless. So there wasn't really an option for the quick catch. And we've spent most of the year with very little paperwork, very little anything. So have since had them surveyed, have had electrical tests, have had the water tests. So we've got a, portfolio around them. And the long and the short of it is the building is sound, but the loos, fixtures, fittings, not so sound. We currently run them on a tenancy at will, so we could break a month's notice, but have agreed heads of terms as laid out in the ambitions of the devolution prospectus for a long-term lease, which includes them, the whole building, and the whole of what we've been calling the library apron. So the area all the way down in front of the library to the bridge. So we're very close to signing that. And we have to sort of remember when we're looking at loos why we felt that was important to include them in the devolution packet, which means standards and levels of control, which I think so far we haven't really managed to improve on as yet. To enhance the visitor experience, well, there is a loo there when they get there, but I'm not sure what sort of experience it is. Any loos support local businesses and the market traders, of course, and it aligns with our town centre ambitions to help make the town centre a thriving place. Loos are important, provisions of loos are important. There also is potential that we can leverage funding for them in a way that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have them, because we're going to need to find funding for them longer term. What are we talking about? Well, those are the loos, and we're talking about a urinal, 3 multi-use units. This is as we go along, 3 multi-use units, a disabled unit, and then the changing places unit, which is just tucked in by the dog leg so you can't quite see the door, but it's just tucked in there. And the changing places unit is much newer, so that is. Oh, there we are. Oh, sorry. There we go. So we have done a snapshot survey because it was pointed out to us that we didn't really know what we were closing, what we were looking at. So that was very interesting. We've done that just over a day, 10 p.m. yesterday, 2 p.m. yesterday to 2 p.m. today. And it was really interesting. 284 users, approximately 87 of all toilet users were locals and generally known to the community in the community. The urinals by far saw the most use. That was quite interesting. And statistically, there were more male users to female users, 75-25 at all times other than at lunchtime, where it was much more even. I'm not really sure what that tells you, but it does give a picture of what was going on over the last Sometimes we did find out that sometimes people can't tell if the toilet is engaged, so that was a useful thing to know. Users generally are very appreciative of the facilities, even if they're not very nice, some people have commented. So thank you to the support stewards who did that for us so that we could have a bit more information to talk about it today. So why are we looking at this now? Well, really, it feels a bit like spiralling costs, and we want to learn some lessons from Victoria Park loos, which limped on for quite a long time until they could no longer limp on, and then suddenly there was an imperative to do something as they closed. These are the sums that we're currently talking about. So last year they cost £53,000. And this year so far, they've already cost us 14,000. And this means that, they're in line. They'll come in under budget, but it will be somewhere in the region of £59,000 if you can extrapolate it looking forward. The other thing that it would be useful for you to know is that 2 cubicles are currently out of order. And the changing places loo is currently awaiting a replacement part. We thought this was quite indicative of the world of loos, because it's been a whole new world for Sean and I, that's for sure. Can you see the little white plastic knob in the picture at the top? Well, ours is missing, as you can see in the picture at the bottom. Now, getting the equipment signed off as this is the equipment in the changing places, part of the hoist, and it needs to have a safety certificate in order to be used. That tiny little knob has rendered it not safe, and that tiny little knob is going to cost us £164 and cost £40 in postage because it comes from Denmark. So that's sort of what we're talking about. Now, that might be not a surprise to some of you, but it certainly has been over the year to Sean and me, and we felt that might be useful. Whilst acknowledging that toilets are really important, they're also really, really expensive. What else do we really want to say about that? Oh, yes, so, it has cost us all of that money so far, but also is costing roughly half a day a week in staff time. And when I say staff time, what I really mean is Sean, and Sean's got a full-time job here. So it has been, so this is why it feels really important to address this. It feels like this is not very sustainable for very much longer. So we've been looking around at different management options, which I have laid out in a handy table here. And I will just whiz through and get to the part where you can ask me questions about things. So I would say number two is what we've been doing. We have been managing a contract, but we had no idea that the maintenance costs would be so we're managing a cleaning contract, and we're trying to deliver the maintenance on top of that. It is expensive and resource heavy. You'll see in the cost column that all of them have got the 150 cost in there as a one-off cost, because it's just, I don't want us to lose sight of that when it's not straight as simple as deciding which, management option. So option number one is that we employ somebody to look after them, to clean and maintain and keep them done. And that's not really very cost effective either. It's highly intensive, and we understand that councillors are not looking to increase the staff team, and certainly not for loos. So that's why that one's not recommended. Number two, what we have been doing is not recommended because it doesn't feel like it's a useful use of staff time, and it feels like there's probably a more inventive solution that we can come up with. Number three, because we were looking at all the options, one of them is to completely close the Market Yard loos. That would cut a huge swathe out of our budget, but it's not all about that. It's against our values of inclusivity. So I have suggested that that's not recommended. So in an effort to be more creative with the space, I have had conversations with the Cheese and Grain. And one of the options we've looked into is that they will manage the cleaning and the maintenance of the loos. So the management of the loos is still with us, but they will do the day-to-day efficient cleaning. They think that they can deliver it for much less. So if they're all open at the moment, and well, not at the moment, if we get them to a stage where they're open, then they can deliver it for 20,000 plus. We anticipate around £5,000 consumables that they would bill us for separately, and then the maintenance would be on top of that. They would fix the things that their facilities team could fix, and otherwise the larger things would just be by agreement. So this is something we've done a scoping document, talked about what it might look like, and it is something that is a possible and potential solution. But given that 2 of the loos are closed at the moment, that brings us to option 5, which is rather than try and get the 2 loos that are currently closed, that we sort of close them as they become obsolete, which we're expecting over time, with the exception of the Changing Places loo, which is very important to everybody in the town, but also particularly important to the Cheese and Grain. This feels like it's a good community partnership. It would the argument is that we would extend the You're Welcome scheme. There would be signage on the loo doors as they close. At the moment they've just got this is out of order. The hope would be that as we close them one by one, we would change that to a more permanent sign, which would direct people to Cheese and Grain. Ultimately, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that it does need investment. The £150,000 quote that was based on figures that Danfo did give us. That, of course, it could be delivered on a sliding scale. So for 1 urinal and 4 cubicles, it was £150,000. For 1 urinal and 2 cubicles, it would be £90,000. So there is definitely scope for creativity there. So it all feels like, it feels like it's a moving, it's a moving feat at the moment, and it feels like a good time to do something. We have these 2 cubicles, we can get them up and running. It's again going to be costly. Yes, I think that's the which is just really difficult. So really, this paper isn't deciding the long-term future of the loos. Anything that we chose to do would still offer a solution that would allow full refurbishment in the future, whilst we look at it maybe as devolution part 2. So look at what we're going to do with that whole area in its entirety. So questions, thoughts?
I'm going to use the chair prerogative and ask the first question. When we're talking about the Changing Places loo,
Yes.
and that's different from the disabled loo.
Yes.
So I'm wondering whether we look at one of the options, which is not only keeping the Changing Places loo open, but also the disabled access loo open, because that would seem to be where we've got the lack of facilities elsewhere in the town. It's
that is a possibility. That loo currently has so the way that they're divided up in the back of the Changing Places, because it was a relatively recent addition, is just on a separate system. So we absolutely could. That doesn't mean we couldn't make that choice. Of course, we can make the choice for whichever we are looking at. And one assumes that whichever choice we're making at the moment is a relatively short-term choice.
Thank you. Polly?
Thank you. Feels like, I mean, we chose to take them on, but it feels like we've been slightly herded and it is really frustrating. I very much feel, I feel much more strongly about 4 than 5. It says Cheese and Grain would prefer option 5. What's the length of time? Is there a possible way? I mean, we've been trialing option 2. Could we trial option 4? If they don't like it and it doesn't work and it turns out to be too expensive, I mean, what is the sort of length of time of an agreement on 4? Because I just feel like 4 is so much better for the town.
So we have that agreement with Steve. That is one of the options that he has said that he would be happy with.
But is it open-ended is what I'm asking? Like, is it a fixed, if we decide, for instance, on that this evening, for instance, would it commit us to an extended time that would be taking us down a...
No, I mean, effectively,
costly-
it's on a month-by-month
Okay.
basis.
Thank
Mel?
There's a kind of form of madness in this report.
Sorry.
And no, we've kind of, not your madness, just kind of in the way that we were approaching it. Why would we want to take on a building which was given to us by another public body, but we haven't signed a legal agreement yet, at £150,000 plus, and then quite a lot every year? It seems to me to be balmy. I actually think we should discount 1 to 4, and we should accept 5, but we should get on with it. And before we sign any agreement with Somerset, we should say, we intend to take this on board, but we are going to close the toilets, and we're going to use the Cheese and Grain. And we should do that before we sign any lease with them, because they'll probably put something in it that says it must be used as toilets for eternity, or at least until the end of the lease. And so I checked it out today. The Cheese and Grain, certainly I couldn't get into the women's toilet, but the men's toilet was fine. It was well kept, 2 urinals and a closet. So I just think, why don't we just go for that? Because I know what's going to happen. Bit by bit, we'll close these toilets as they are not usable. The last thing we need in the town centre is another deteriorating block of toilets, which would make the second one. So why don't we get on with it and actually say, this is what we intend to do, and if you don't like it, Somerset, you can have it back, and you can close them if needs be. And we could still have an arrangement with the Cheese and Grain. So just think we shouldn't be putting it off to sometime in the future when we know that they're not going to get much better without quite a lot of expenditure.
Can I just ask that you do, by that, when you say close it, you do mean we still protect the changing places, Lou? Yeah. So in order to protect that, we sort of have to have the lease, is the rub of that.
Okay, but I'm sure we can work it out. But we've learned enough dealing with Mendip and now Somerset to not enter into one of these agreements where it's going to cost us £200,000 already. Why would we want to do that at this stage? Why don't we actually prove that we've looked at what's possible here and we've looked at our finances and we don't want to do it in the way that they want to do it?
I think Paul's going to respond to that before we go to some other questions.
I think, Mel, you're agreeing with the recommendation, it's just do it now. So I just wanted to clarify. And are you saying, excuse me, keep the toilets open until they have to be closed, or just close them all now?
Close them, because actually there's a in the paper, this number 5 actually shows 150,000 as potential refurbishment, which isn't shown on this table here. So that kind of evens it up. We should do it now. We should actually bite the bullet and actually make it happen, do the deal with the Cheese and Grain, and we should say to Somerset, we want to use this for a different purpose. So I prefer it if we got the freehold, to be honest, but I guess they're not going to give it. But maybe they would, you never know, they don't want to be left with it. And then we actually use them for a different purpose. So we lease it to somebody and we could turn it into 2 small shops or whatever, or a little restaurant. And it would make that whole place better. Because you know what's going to happen. It's just going to be vandalized and there's going to be a lot more antisocial behaviour around there. Whereas if it's used and maintained properly, then that'll happen less. So let's not do the normal local government thing. Well, we put off the major decision until later on. Let's actually do it now.
I think we're at virtually the final stage of the kind of the lease, and we've tried very hard, correct me, Rachel, if I'm wrong here, to ensure that our options for the future of this are open.
I think Sarah would like to come in as well now.
And evidently Sarah's trying to come in and she's been negotiating it. So Sarah, do you want to?
Sarah from.
Yeah. The heads of terms are only just being agreed, but there's no commitment in there at the moment that they have to be toilets. It's all about community use. And if we do the major investment and Somerset want the building back, there is a repayment schedule. I don't think they would be opposed to us using the building for another purpose.
So we could just progress
Yes.
as planned in the report.
Yes.
And close them now, as you're suggesting now, and get the lease done, and then do exactly as the recommendation sits. So that's entirely possible. There are kind of reasons underneath this that I'd rather not talk about in public, but to the world, that I just wouldn't really want to talk about at the moment, but I don't think there's anything, as Sarah said, that's in the heads of terms at the moment that then will be in the lease that would preclude us from doing this.
Andy.
Given those numbers that suggested 75% was male usage, I'm wondering whether there's a path that says actually it's worth keeping the urinal open at the end of that block as best we can, and what the cost of that element alone would be.
I'm not entirely sure what the urinal's being used for. It's part of, it may be part of the antisocial behaviour problem. And we did only have a snapshot. Yeah, we did only have a snapshot today.
Okay, no, I take your point.
That doesn't mean we couldn't. That doesn't mean we couldn't learn more. That doesn't mean we couldn't do more surveys.
Yeah, but I mean, I must say my gut feeling is largely with Mel on this, that actually it's much cleaner just to say Somerset sold us a bag of doo-doo and we're closing these down. We'll keep the changing places one going, and the Cheese and Grain is an excellent facility that we recommend you use.
Steve.
Yeah, couple of points. Firstly, if the town centre group that we've got, have they got a view on this?
Well, yeah,
To get them closed immediately.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Right. Okay. No, we just
I mean,
agree
I'm
with
not
me.
sure if Mark feels the same. Mark is
Right.
also on the town centre group, but that absolutely, that's Mark.
Okay. And secondly, excuse my ignorance. The change in places bit.
Yes,
Could that be also used as a disabled toilet, or are they two separate things?
yes.
So,
It effectively is. It's just
Yeah.
a sort of branded disabled
Yeah.
toilet. It's got a clever, what makes it changing places is the winch and the lift.
okay.
So,
So
and the size.
if we were to keep that bit open and close the rest, then that could be a disabled toilet come changing places.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And
Oh,
I
yes,
had a-
changing places is a loo facility for disabled people rather than what it sounds like, which is somewhere you get changed.
Yeah. And the only other thing, I mean, I noticed during the independent market, on the independent market Sundays, there's often quite a large sort of need for
Yes.
toilets. I mean, surely they could hire a
Hire a-
Portaloo or something like that to keep
Yes.
the,
So
is that
there's-
on there, sorry?
There's money in the budget.
Hire an event toilet.
Yeah.
Read it.
Yeah, so that is just an estimate.
All
for-
right, sorry, yeah. That's all, thanks.
That's right.
Anita?
Yeah, just a quick question, really. If I remember rightly, the changing places is accessible with a radar key.
Yes.
Can you get in there without a radar key?
No.
Okay, but radar keys can be bought
Yes.
very cheaply,
Yep.
which means that because it's a huge space, I don't know if anyone else has been in there, but it's an absolutely enormous space, big enough for a party. So,
big- and it
you know,
has
it
a-
almost would lend itself to some sort of antisocial behaviour. That would be a worry.
It has a bed in it, actually. So it has, over the winter, been used by rough sleepers who've actually left it cleaner than they found it, probably. Which, all we can do is the thing that we always do. We call the housing team and make sure that they're connected in. And yeah, that is something that we can't really change. And I'm sure that that happens in disabled loos throughout the
I'm sure,
throughout the
but should we
country.
make it clear to people that they would need a radar key for access?
I think it's clear there's a key on the door. There's a sign on the door. That's part of the.
We used to hold a key in Discover Frame that people could use.
Yeah,
Is that
we-
still the case?
Yes, we do. We have the key that people can use from Discover Froome. We also sell keys. The market team have a key to hand out to use if people are there. So
Great.
yeah, and I would also suggest that we ensure that Cheese and Grain have them to sell for times when they will still be on a lock. So there's a timing lock, so they're open from 7 in the morning till 8 at night, and they will still be on a timed lock.
Thank
I
you.
think we've got one more question from Mark, and then we'll move to a vote.
Thank you. Rachel, remember my involvement in changing places at the park, and I've lived and breathed this for years. In fact, my first event as a councillor ever was the opening of the one in the market by the late lamented Harvey Siggs.
Yeah.
When Mendip claimed credit for it all. But what Steve says is right. It can be used as an ordinary, if we call it that. It's a much augmented disabled lavatory.
Yeah.
But the amount of kit that's in there is very, very expensive, and so I'm unlikely to support it being used more widely than it possibly is at the moment. Anita's right. I mean, I've seen people buy these things, buy radar keys on eBay and Amazon or whatever. So restricting the use to that is very important. I'm slightly with Mel that maybe keep that open, possibly the disabled unit as a general use. But what happens to so we are taking on the whole block. Who is responsible for the police post? And I think there's a storage unit there as well, isn't there, for somebody?
Yes, so that will also be in once everything's agreed, that is in the lease too. So the repurpose there's lots of scope for repurposing the whole area. And I think really once that comes across and we move on to that phase of work and looking at what we're going to do there, that will unlock what comes next. But really until have that properly in our sites.
So we could
Hard
take it
to-
all on and rent, sublease the police post and the storage unit there?
Yep. Yes, we could, or we could use them ourselves, or we could, give it to the share shop, or there are a whole host of other things that we could potentially do. Just on the back of the, I would just like to state the case that I would thoroughly not recommend, if we are closing the loos, we should really think about how we decommission them. There is effectively an open drain that runs along the back in the service area, which makes it really revolting for any staff to have to go there at all. So just as a note that we wouldn't want it to be in a state of unrest rather than decommission for very long.
I think you're right, because we've ran into that problem with loop de loop.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
you can see how difficult that becomes to remedy. With regard to the £4,000 hiring event toilets, would we share the cost for independent market? Would we share the cost of those with independent market? I appreciate if we're doing our own events, yes. But would we share that cost on the 10 Sundays?
Well, I think we probably should, or we should at least talk about it, see where there is, it feels like that is where, so the Cheese and Grain is set up to run on really big events. So most of the time it's absolutely fine to point people to there, On independent markets, there are more people coming into the town, which we want to support. That is a good thing. Therefore, it feels if we've taken away the resource that maybe we should share in the cost. The £4,000 also includes for when we've got events on too.
So could we display the recommendation?
I didn't realise there were so many of them.
Are we happy to vote on them in one block?
Has it become non-operational? We've just decided we wouldn't do that, I thought.
Discussed that we wouldn't do it. So are you making a proposal to change recommendation 2 or remove recommendation 2?
King, I could take out number 5 because we don't have to continue to monitor it to inform next steps, because actually we're going to do it immediately. We don't have to explore quotes for refurbishment of existing toilet block because we're not going to do that. And include 7 doesn't really mean very much anyway. Recommendations from the discussion that we've had don't all seem to apply.
Polly? Hang on, okay.
Hang on, process.
Okay.
So Mel is proposing to make some changes to the recommendations. And then we have to take those ones, vote on them, and if they're followed, then we go to Polly.
You make the changes based upon the discussions that we've had.
Okay. So Mel's proposing the following changes. Someone else would need to second them. I suggest recommendation 2 is close the other toilets and not wait for them to be non-operational, so we just close them. Obviously 3 remains the same, otherwise no one will be able to go. 4 remains unchanged. I think there is a usefulness of number 5 to monitor what people are thinking, so we just know that basic information, not a big scale monitoring, but just something we just understand what people are thinking, because we'll drop 6, because number 7 is talking about the kind of whole of that area, and more information we have on people's aspirations and what they do at the moment would be really useful. So in summary, what I'm suggesting is cut the second half of number 2 off and take out number 6. So Mel's proposing that.
It looks like Steve might be. Mel's proposing. It looks like Steve's ready to second that.
So all those in favour? So there's a majority, and Polly is
Objecting.
So that's so that we've got a new set of recommendations now, and now you've got the opportunity to suggest other changes.
I don't need to suggest other changes. I suppose what I really wanted to say was that I'm probably the only person that's going to object to the recommendation for number 5 anyway. So before we vote, I wanted to say why. Is this the moment?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I really feel quite strongly about this. I think that it's a really big deal for the town to lose them. I think just with the example of Loop de Loop and how that's gone, Oh, we'll repurpose them. Yeah, will we? Or will there just be a whole raft of problems that cost just as much as getting them back up to scratch and keeping them on where people know they are? The work that went into them, and Mark knows what that is like, because how long did it take you to get the park toilets into the superb state that they are now? It's about maintenance, and they were not maintained, and that's not our fault. But we've taken something on. It's so important to the town. Yeah, no, I know. I do completely get the recommendation, and I get why you've come to that. And I still feel just really frustrated that we've got to the point where, you know, our best guess, our best financial situation, and we have you funneled here into this situation, is to shut it down. And I think it would be just as expensive to repurpose it. I don't think that the Cheese and Grain is a suitable alternative. It is just too far out of the centre of the town, of the hub of the town. It's not that much further, but it just is that much. And plus it's entering another building where some people won't feel comfortable to go. This is a separate toilet block. And when we lost that one on the island, even though great reasons, you know, that by Gore Hedge, you know, and then we lost the ones that's because we wanted to rebuild, and they haven't been looked after, and that's absolutely frustrating. I just feel like anything that we could do to give them a last shot, to keep them open where everybody knows they are, and it's just public right to be able to go to the toilet, and I can't think we're just not looking after that by doing this.
Can we just say that a comment's just come up from Tracy that we feel ought to be fed in, which says... Is this on the subject? Yes, she says she knows she's not there to vote, but she agrees with Polly's current comments.
So as a result of what you're saying, would you like to change?
I don't really mind what you do with the semantics of the thing. I don't like the fact that we all had the paper beforehand, we all had the recommendations beforehand, and the fact that they're all being, you know, now repurposed to fit a new, you know, opinion. Fair enough, but I don't know if there's any point in voting for the amendment if I'm going to object to the whole thing. Is there?
You need to decide what you want to vote on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I can't just vote for the unrecommended option of number 4. That's not an option, is it? It was just go with 5 or not go with 5.
unless you want to change the recommendations. So you do have the option to go. You propose to take away all of those 7 and go with operation, option 4. That would be the next change in the recommendations if you wanted to make it.
It'll be helpful.
Okay.
It's unusual. Polly's got a point. So we're mucking around on the recommendations. Bring it back to the next meeting. I mean, and then you can people can have their say. They can see what it says, what the recommendations are, and they can go on from there.
But we got this paper, we got this exact situation. This has been refined a couple of months ago in a paper when we were taking on the devolution stuff. So we've had all this. I felt the same then, and I did express it then. So this is delayed because the operations and assets meeting has been delayed. So we just, what you're saying is delaying it further again.
I thought it was being helpful.
No, it's...
Did you want to go to the vote?
Well, we voted on the changed recommendations, and we've agreed to change the proposal. I think we should now vote on that unless Andy has a further amendment.
So I'm sorry, I am going to throw in a curveball, which is that given some of the input from colleagues on the council, I wonder whether we should defer this to a full council meeting, given the importance of it, on, because it crosses multiple threads. It crosses the town centre, it crosses devolution. I wonder whether this committee feels comfortable making the decision on behalf of the full 17 members of the council.
Well, especially as we've had comments from Tracy and Anita, who may like to be able to vote on it.
This committee has delegated responsibility to decide on assets. So it is the remit of this committee to decide. Now, this committee can defer it up the line. The next council meeting is on the 28th of August. In the meantime, we're carrying on spending the money we are at the moment to keep them open and deferring that decision to another time, otherwise known as kicking the can down the road if we're thinking negative about it. I mean, there is a refined, supported set of recommendations on the table. And I suggest this committee ought to vote on it, and if it isn't passed, then we can carry on the conversation about what we do then, I suggest.
So we are going to vote on the refined proposal for or against or abstain.
So actually, no one has proposed this. Sorry. No one has proposed the refined set of proposals.
Okay, we voted to change them. Yes. Now we have to vote. Who proposes this new proposal? Mel? Yes. 2 seconds. Mark?
And then vote.
All in favour?
So that's majority, and Polly against or abstain?
Against.
Against. So that's passed.
Agenda item 5. So this is our financial position at the end of June 2025, and Sarah is joining us from annual leave. Sarah.
Hi there. So yeah, we circulated all the reports for the quarter ending June. As it's quite early in the year, there's nothing notable to raise with you. Everything looks on target. Were there any questions from over the income and expenditure or the balance sheet?
Bell.
It's quite early in the year. Can I ask at this point that at the next meeting, we look not just at any overspends as variance, but any underspends, because there's quite a lot of nothing being spent. There's quite a lot of minus 100%. And it's just as important for us to keep on track in terms of what we've agreed as to be looking for, budget changes that are going to be pluses. So that would be really helpful. It doesn't have to be a lot of work, and
sure.
I'm not interested. I'm personally not interested in anything that's below 3,000 or some figure like that. So it's the big figures we should be searching out.
Absolutely. There have been a number of requests coming in for the excess surplus general reserves, but I will bring those to the next meeting.
Thank you, Sarah. Andy?
I had submitted 3 questions by email, which Sarah had responded to, but I think it might be helpful to read those into the minutes of this meeting. So my first question was the EMR for school streets. What's the remaining money due to be spent on?
Yeah, the answer. Do you want to read the answer, Andy, or do you want me to?
You can give us the answer, Sarah.
The answer was the remaining EMR is contingency for 2 main reasons. A, should Somerset Council require improvements or adjustments to the existing scheme, and B, reinstatement if the Safer School Streets scheme is stopped.
Thank you. The second one was, why did we pay nearly 20,000 on carpentry at Badgers Hill? Isn't that something CBS should have paid?
We did pay it out to the contractor, but only after the net amount came into us via the football club as part of the Premier League sponsorship fund grant. So it was no cost to FTC.
Yeah, I think that highlights one of the challenges with us only looking at the outgoings, is that we don't sort of see how those things balance properly. I wonder if there's a way we can show those on some of the reporting so that we know whether it's our money or somebody else's money that we're spending.
I've got a bit of insight to that. So the Premier League Stadium funding went to Frome Town AFC Limited, whereas the Community Ownership Fund funding went to the Community Benefit Society.
Right, yeah, okay. And then the third one was a quick question about what had been going on with barters, because we seem to have multiple duplicate payments on the same day.
Yep, sorry, that was definitely where you saw only the outgoings. All the outgoings were refunded. It was a problem with the card.
Yeah, so had we seen the incomings as well, I wouldn't have had the question, but hey ho.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So are there any other questions on the financial reports before we move on to the refugee?
Anita, oh, no, because Sarah's about to talk about the
I can hand over to Anita for that one.
Frome welcomes refugees. Yes, Anita, do you want to speak on that?
Okay, I think this actually came up at a previous meeting when it was oversight, because there was a request for the £15,000 that's currently in FTC Bank. I put in a request that that should be transferred over to the Frome Welcomes Refugee Group to manage, because that's where a lot of the decisions are made. My understanding is that it didn't pass at the last reading, really because there was not enough understanding about the role of Rotary, because that was mentioned. Now, Rotary actually have always managed the money for us, because in the very first instance, when that money was raised by Frome people for RABCA, for the refugees, we were able to use Rotary's position to gain what do you call it? It's gift aid, isn't it? Gift aid, that's right. So we actually had 15% more money for RABCA by doing that. As a consequence, Rotary have always held that money, but I think there was a concern that Rotary, or maybe not even understanding at all who made the decision about where that money would go, whether it was Rotary or the refugee group. Justin and I are both here tonight to say that categorically any decision about where that money goes comes from a discussion with the refugee group, and it's only ever handed out according to the guidelines that we've set regarding the way we treat them. We have authorization from RABCA to use that money for any refugees in the town. And as a consequence, it means that we end up doing things like everybody who comes in, first of all, is given £50 just to sort themselves out with a cup of coffee and get a few extras. If they move into accommodation, they get a grant of £400 to help with furniture and the like. There is help with school uniforms that often Rotary do come 50-50 with us to pay for school uniforms and things like that. But everybody is monitored very closely. The accounts are produced in a very authentic way. So it's really requesting, if this group agrees, that we actually take over that money into Frome Welcomes Refugee Group, managed by Rotary, but with the refugee group making the decisions as to where it goes.
Thank you for that clarification, Anita. My question at the last meeting was, there are 3 Rotary clubs in Frome, and I just needed, I think it's a good idea for it to go to a Rotary club, but I just didn't know which one it was going to.
It's the original Rotary Club. I think they are called Frome Rotary, not Frome Town Rotary, but they are one of the 3, but the oldest of the 3.
So, as I understand it, it's called the Rotary Club of Frome.
Yes.
Yeah. So that.
Justin's nodding.
I'm suggesting we tag that on for clarification at the end of the last one.
Okay. But Sarah has the details of the gentleman who comes from Rotary to represent them, to keep our accounts up to date. And I think Sarah has all the details of the bank account that she needs in order to transfer that money from Frome Town Council. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, I'll get in touch with Brian again just to double confirm the details of who the money's going to.
It's Norman who manages it now.
Norman, okay. So no, I'll need updating on that, Anita, but we can do that next week when I'm back.
Sarah, I did send you an email with all the account information.
Okay, thanks.
Shall
I'll
I
look
send
it
it
up,
again?
Justin. No, I'll look it up, Justin. Thanks.
So can we move to a vote?
So I think
Proposer?
this one, we're all a bit relaxed about that second, that red bit. Is that all right, everyone? Yeah.
So I'm going to, Andy proposing, Mark seconding, all those in favour?
That's unanimous.
Very much.
So our next agenda item is, and this is going to be a standing item, I think, for this committee. So part of agenda item 7 is, do we like the way we are reviewing the open spaces and business services work programmes? So what we have in our papers is really a RAG rating, so red, amber, green rating for those 2 areas of work. Very much in short form. So in agenda item 7, if you've got comments about there's not enough information there, there's too much information there, then we are going to discuss that. But the idea is that the 2 areas of work that come under our remit, every meeting, we just look at business as usual. Is there anything there that we need to concern ourselves with? Is there anything that we can support those 2 areas of work? Really deciding, is the work that we're doing the right work? Is there anything there that's of concern? Is there anything there that we want to stop doing? So first of all, we'll have a look at the open spaces. Rob's on holiday, so who's going to lead us through this area of the work programme? Is that you, Paul?
Yes, but I haven't anything to add to it. So it's just, there's no particular sticking points, everything's on track.
And it's all green. It's all lovely and green. As they open spaces should be. Yeah. So, you've got a comment, Mark?
Suppose I should, as Home Spaces lead. Rob and I meet regularly, at least 2 or 3 times a month, to see what's going on. So, and they just keep on keeping on. It's the work has increased because of devolution. The more the land we've taken on. He and Jay have worked out schedules for the work, especially the mowing and the maintaining the land during the summer. It may be, I mean, it's always going to be green as far as I know. There may be the odd glitch, and so perhaps we should go to like an exception reporting model rather than everything's rosy. And possibly for the other items, I know we're just going to discuss that more later, but certainly in this area, I think that's probably the way to go.
I think what would be nice, I think, is maybe, yes, exception reporting, and maybe this is an appendix just so we can be overwhelmed with the amazing work that's happening, just so we can remind ourselves each meeting, here's all of the lovely stuff that's going on and everything's fine. Bit of celebration of what's going on.
And I think we can, and I think as the year goes, the seasons go through, every meeting of this, we can probably highlight something that's happening or about to happen. And we always say that the open spaces are our shop window to everybody. It's the first thing everybody notices rather than our IT systems. And so maybe that's something we could highlight each time.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we'll look at the business services work programme as well. I know Sarah's put a summary of the top of this part of the report. Talking about our IT systems. So we do have a couple of amber items. So updating the IT hardware and software, and then ensuring all office systems facilitate cost-effective administrative efficiency. Sarah, any further comments other than ones you've already put in the paper? Is she gone? Okay. Yeah. No. So it's recognised as a sticking point. It's there in the report. No further comment. So, standing item, have them in the report, look at those areas of our work. I think certainly if there are amber things, we need to keep them on our radar. Certainly if there was anything red in there, then we would want to discuss it further.
So have you moved into item 7?
I think we're just about to move into item 7. So, unashamedly copying from Carla and the way that she ran the community and place meeting, which is collaboratively, collegiately, how do we want these meetings to work? I think every time we meet, there will be items that we must discuss. And then I think it would be nice if we dive a little bit deeper into an area each time we meet. I personally need to learn more about things like risk management. And I know that we look at our risk register once a year, and what might be quite nice, I think, is that if we have a bit of a learning exercise to understand how risk is managed, how risk is calculated, what mitigation we can have in place to manage risk, just to understand a bit more about risk management within the organisation. But what would be nice is if by the end of this meeting we can have a work programme for the whole year for what we look at as a committee. Any comments, Mel?
I think it would be useful, particularly on the council's estate item, for an annual walk around visit, which I've experienced elsewhere, and it's kind of, it works. It gets the staff a little kind of agitated in terms of doing some work. I mean, they do work all the time. I meant doing some work specifically because somebody's got to come and look at it. And it's just helpful.
I enjoyed a whole day walking with Rob around there is a walk that's I think on the Discover Frome website that joins up our green spaces. It does take all day, but it was a fantastic walk. It was a really enjoyable walk.
Perhaps you should do it by bike, eh? The red, amber, green, I don't find very useful. I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of look at it and think, yeah, right, yeah. But it's a lot of the green shown there about continuous work, even though they're shown as done, basically. And actually,
I think it's more. Everything's on track. There's no.
I haven't quite finished it. Yeah, but that it doesn't really mean anything as a when you're sitting here. So some way of having more exceptions would be good. And actually maybe he's picking out some significant issues that might be there, even if we are on continuous movement. Where does the town centre lie? Because we actually walk around the town centre quite frequently. We agree to do things, and some things do get done, and it's been great. But particularly the ranger who works on the town centre, is that here? Or is that in the other committee?
Communities in place.
Do they know that? Was that on the, okay?
You voted for it as councillors in the room.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Yes, we know it.
But then it's interesting because that's not where
I think because it's not
you're
an
not there
asset.
and I'm not there, and I don't know where Zara is, but yeah. Okay, that's fine. As long as it's there somewhere.
Yes, Rachel.
Tracy's just put up a little note that she says a fantastic idea about the walk round, but she's not getting on a bike, thanks.
I think Tabit.
Can I just respond to some of Mel's points before we move on?
And then I'll go to Mark. Yeah.
It's really hard because the RAG rating thing, some people really like it, some people don't. And I'm really happy to, I mean, we amended it and refined it a little bit from last time. We put much less detail in and much more overview. Excuse me. And in the kind of summary document that overlays the appendix, we do highlight, or we will highlight, in Rob's area, that everything's fine. Mark suggested we put some highlights in, which we can certainly do. In Sarah's area, she's highlighted some sticking points, and that's why they're orange. So I'm not really sure. I mean, what do you want me to do? I'm trying to do what people are asking me to do, but everyone's got a different opinion on reporting back on the work programme.
Mark, is your point on the RAG rating, or is it something different?
Rating for my area of responsibility, maintain the estate. We're maintaining the estate. If I'd like to see
Never ending.
It'll be there forever. So if there's an exception, we're maintaining the estate apart from this thing that's collapsed or this bridge has fallen down or something like that. That's what we need to know about, really, not the day-to-day work. And so the RAG rating will always be green for that area, with the odd exception of things that befall us, really, or things that we suddenly have to spend a load of money on. So I think those are the important things that we need to know about. And also, if everything's going tickety-boo, then we can, Rob can highlight an area that's been done really, really well, a new path or playground or something like that, which we can celebrate.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they just keep carrying on. The work gets more. With regard to the estate, something I wanted to ask Polly, Steve and I on planning, we're going to more and more meetings with developers who say, we're going to build on all this green, and Andy, God, we're all here, apart from Philip. We keep going to these meetings and say, we're going to build on all this green space, but we're going to give you a lovely nature reserve or basically a bit they can't grow on, can't build on, attenuation ponds. So and they try and give it to us. And we say, well, perhaps with a dowry, perhaps with a management contract, something like that. So where does that sit? Does that sit with the whole of council, or does that sit within this committee?
So any acquisition of a place is a council decision?
Something, they say, well, we're going to own it, but you can manage it, and then we take on maybe a contract. Would come here, or it's still being I'd like to see it go to council as a whole, really.
So the acquisition and the agree to transfer, even on a 99-year lease or freehold, would be a council decision. And when it becomes a council asset, then depending on how significant it is, it would either come to this committee or it would go to council. I mean, it's sort of a case-by-case basis, I suggest. If it's really big, then it's a council decision. If it's a green space half the size of this room, then it could be how we're going to manage it is for this committee. Does that answer your question?
That makes sense. And with regard to the town centre bit, I think that falls within the other meeting, the community and
Place.
Because I was hoping to sit on only one of these committees, but then when I looked at which one to drop out of, I had to sit on that one for the town centre and this one for the open spaces, so I was a bit snookered.
Steve.
A couple of things, actually. I mean, just finishing off on Mark's bit about green spaces that developers get, maybe we should have a council policy on that. I don't know, maybe it's something to talk to Jane about, and the planning team. But just going back to the RAG rating, whatever, I mean, it sort of goes back to the question I asked on the toilets. You know, what was the town centre group's view? And to me, you know, we spent a lot of time putting in lead councillors and small groups to look at certain things. And my view is like on the toilets, if the town centre group who are looking at the town centre want to do something, as far as I'm concerned, you know, they're the group, they're looking at it. I'll go along with what they sort of want at the end of the day. And going back to and so following on from the RAG rating is if everything's going ahead as per the work programme, I don't want to see a whole load of green. Well, what I would like to see is the lead councillor and their respective staff member just come to here or council or whatever and say, right, everything's fine apart from this and this and this, where we've got a small problem or we've got a massive problem or whatever. And that to me is what that role is.
I think the one reason why a committee has to consider it is because working groups aren't decision-making bodies.
But we don't need to go through every single thing that the lead councillor and the lead member of staff have spent hours and hours and hours poring over, and then an 8-page report which is just a whole load of green sort of thing, you know.
Exactly.
If they're comfortable with what's going on, then we as a group put them in that position, let them get on with it.
So I'd still quite like a list of all of the lovely things that are going on somewhere, just as a reminder, but we don't have to
highlights, yeah.
discuss it. Exactly.
Yeah, we don't want to I mean, Mark, I'm sure Mark and Rob can come up with highlights and everyone else can.
So in Rob's absence, I reviewed his work programme and put everything in green. It took me about 3 minutes. And when I wrote the report, no particular highlights or sticking points, took me another 70 seconds. So it's not an onerous task to do. And it's for the record as well. That's the other thing. And it does, you know, where there are sticking points, like Sarah's example of the IT projects, then that's the sort of thing that this committee ought to be, you know, giving a contribution to.
I guess from my perspective, I'm not really going to read anything that's green. I'm just going to go straight to the orange and the red, you know.
But in
If you want it for the record, yeah.
At the end of the year, there's a regular
Sure.
update on, you all know that you've received quarterly updates on progress on the work programme. For the record, you know, it took 3 minutes to write and no minutes to read, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Holly.
Go.
Oh, you were waiting.
No, it's okay.
Just about remit and how we're going to operate and things, which I think is kind of what you're putting some stuff forward for thought there. But I kind of thought, I'm not really sure if I was at the meeting as to why we split into this format, but my impression, correct me if I'm wrong, was so that more people could attend in the evenings, to split up what was happening at council because that was too busy. There were too many agenda items. So this committee was able to make more decisions, but also to bring some of the work that happens in the day in smaller groups out into a more transparent body, so that that we can kind of get our teeth into things because we're smaller, but because it's you know, it's better to have those things more open. I wasn't able to, I think I joined the oversight committee at the beginning, but I couldn't stay because of the work commitments I had. But at the beginning, it was kind of good. It was in the day, but it was like staff were coming forward and saying, here's what we do with this. So you were sort of saying, let's learn a bit about bits and pieces, but we kind of don't want to mirror that, because I think some of the criticisms before was that it was, you know, staff feeling they had to, you know, report, and that wasn't quite what this was going to be about. I thought more about working on issues, so grabbing those red issues and saying this needs to be done. Like, just, I mean, I think we're saying same thing really, is just like tackle the issues, have the time to work through them openly and transparently, but work on them as if you were a smaller group in the day. The sort of work that gets normally done in the day that other people can't take part in is now able to be done here. Is that right?
Really good, yes. And what would be nice is if we could think about the sort of themes to look at. So risk management is one area of work. Money and investments and finance is another area of work. IT is another area of work. Staffing and HR issues is another area of work. So what would be nice is if we could each meeting think about how we can help, how can we support, what issues would our input help the staff body to think about, try and solve some of the problems, some of the issues, and also saying, hang on a minute, I don't think we're going in the right direction here. We shouldn't be doing this work, or there's a better way of doing this work. So those sort of broad themes, each meeting looking at a different area. Andy.
Yeah, I like that approach. I'm pleased to hear that the RAG rating doesn't take too much time to update once it's in existence, because actually I do find that quite reassuring just to be able to have a glance at as an appendix. And sometimes it may trigger a question that, although this is green, I've seen this item that I think means it shouldn't be green. So having it there gives us a key to ask some of those questions. So I would like to see the RAG rating retained, but a sort of executive summary brought forward to say, here's what's particularly good or particularly bad that we need this team to be aware of and to suggest a way forward with.
So, I think the risk piece is probably best in our January meeting, because that's the anniversary of when we last signed off the risk register. So that would seem to be the good time to look at it again, but a bit more of a tutorial, because I know I need to learn about risk management. I don't understand enough.
What do you mean by risk management?
So looking at the likelihood of something identifying what might go wrong, looking at the likelihood of that thing happening, multiplied by the impact if that thing does happen, and then looking at what mitigation we could put in place, either to prevent that thing happening, or if that thing does happen, how can we minimize the impact? So that's what a risk register is, I think. We have one, and we signed it off in January, but I need to know who's managing those risks, who's updating the risk register, how are those risks identified?
So to add to that's right. And so we have a risk strategy which lays out the policy on managing risk. And then the risk register is compartmentalized into financial, reputational, and health and safety, all those other kind of categories. And then it kind of goes down in more and more specifics. And one of the things that came out of the peer challenge last week is that they kind of noted the obvious thing that we all know is that, you know, over the last 5 or 6 years or so, we've expanded rapidly, and our risks have expanded. Therefore, taking on 2 significant buildings in the town, the Badger's Hill and the Key Centre, has increased our risks significantly. So kind of having a discussion around risk generally, and there's a subset of that about insurance, for example, but having a sort of discussion about, so we all understand the extent of the different types of risks we've got. Does that kind of combo of Anne and me answer your question?
And I think, again, as an exception report, so we have the tutorial piece, if you like, in January, but every meeting we glance at the risk register, but if any changes have occurred between our previous meeting, then we need to know, why was that new risk identified? Why has the impact changed? You know, any changes are highlighted to us, just so we know, because it should be a living document that we're all aware of. Andy?
Two things. One, I wonder whether it makes sense for us to have that training exercise prior to being asked to sign it off at the formal January meeting. The other is, and I can't remember whether there is a category, but as we've grown significantly, I think we are also more open to reputational risk, and that may not be called out in a traditional risk register.
I think it is. I think it is.
Okay.
There is a reputational risk section, but I think your general point is well made.
Yes.
That, you know, we haven't changed our approach for a few years, and we've taken on much more risk across the piece. All of the sections, including sort of reputation, because, you know, we're a lot more, if you like, in your face in the community sort of thing.
Polly?
Just back to this element of what we will be using this meeting for, there are XYZ things that come from the rebirth of oversight that we must do and that don't need to be done at full council but can be done by this committee, and those can be scheduled, and I'm very happy to slot in with whatever those are. I wasn't, you know, as I say, part of oversight, so I'm happy to do that. But my understanding is if the council meeting is too full of things and we have split it now this way, that it goes community in place, ops and operations and assets, and and council rotating, then it will naturally fill, is what I'm assuming. There will be some things that we have to do, but it will naturally fill because there will be overflow. So as long as we're clear about what needs to go to full council and what doesn't, the what doesn't just splits into the other two and it will naturally fill up, will it not?
Yeah, but I quite like the idea of having space and time to have that educational piece.
No, agreed.
as well, building
I think it's
understanding. Yeah.
I'm only raising this twice because of the cautionary thing of this is how we started in the other one, oversight, and it just became a series of reporting, which I don't think anybody found useful. So it's almost like if it's too strong on subjects that we don't generally discuss, but actually are fine, and they are being, you know, worked. I'm not saying don't have oversight of it. I'm just saying bring up the reds, the priorities.
Yeah, yeah. So there are things as have to be part of the record, and they're there, and we can look at them and say, fantastic, but we spend our time and energy on the reds. Andy?
Just on item 5, where we are excluding the major assets from our review of the council estate, I wonder whether there's room for this committee actually to have a sort of a listening ear to what's going on with those items, with a pathway to escalate significant decisions back to council.
I think my understanding, my feeling is they're big at the moment. Over time, they will become business as usual. But at the moment, they're volatile.
I mean, I think the cheese and grain is relatively settled. I'm hoping Badger's Hill is almost settled. From Town Hall, we tend to talk about maintenance, you know, investment in looking after the structure of the building, which feels right with this rather than bringing all of that to the full council, other than the fact that council has already agreed a nice bucket of money for us to spend on looking after the place.
I think at full council, didn't we vote that they would still come to full council? So probably full council has to agree to give them back to us.
What I'm writing there is what council agreed in the standing orders. So that was what was agreed. If standing orders would change, the remit of this committee can change, and that was where we are, and that's why they are there.
No, I think you're right, because eventually, I think we should absolutely have those within this remit, but at the moment, they're volatile. It's a good word. We need a theme. Do we need a theme? Shall we have a theme for our next meeting in September?
We're kind of not overflowing with ideas of themes at the moment, so maybe the next one is in September. Anne's always put a bid in for January for risk. Maybe at the next meeting, maybe this meeting, we decide what happens at the September one, if we're not really sure. And shall I summarise the kind of...
Just before you do, am I right that there's a 6, 7, 8 somewhere?
There's 7, 8, 10.
So we could,
Was there a 6?
could have a theme on civic and twinning matters at the next, and we just devote the whole meeting to that. Just a suggestion.
Pass.
So really, they're all there. I mean, 9 and 10. I was joking about 10, but 9 is as and when it happens. The 8 is HR. 7 is IT. No, 6 is the invisible one that no one knows about. Health and safety, risk management, and then finance. So those are your kind of 5 or 6 headings. Yeah. There's 5 or 6 meetings. Mm. Does anyone want to choose one for next time?
Sorry, I'll basically use this. So September will be halfway through the year, wouldn't it? The financial year. So why don't we use the September one? We'll be halfway through the financial year. We can have a look at where we are on overspend, underspend, things like that. I don't know, just suggestion. Things that are coming up, yeah.
Explain to me on 2, financial administration. Does that apply to the other committee as well? Is it all of financial administration, including investment, monitoring income and expenditure? So is that expenditure for the whole council or just for this committee's
The whole council.
remit? Okay.
So
That could be quite interesting, couldn't it?
again, one piece of work that came out of the peer review was having a medium-term financial plan for the council. And that's a piece of work I'm going to be working with Sarah on in August. So our preliminary ideas might be a good thing to bring to council in September.
So I think that would be really good. I'd just put one proviso on it. It doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do it at all. There's always a little lag to get to the end of the second quarter in financial terms. So notwithstanding that, because I think it's more likely that we'll have at the November committee the kind of halfway through the year outturn, if you like. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say we can't talk about investments and savings and medium-term financial plan. And
I'm very happy to spend a whole meeting talking about savings and investments and all of that stuff.
Is there a consensus on Steve's suggestion? All things finance, perhaps not the second quarter. An indication. That's probably enough, isn't it?
I think that is. And I don't think we need to have planned out the whole year to date. So next meeting, we'll think about the November theme. How about that? I think we can declare that meeting closed. And our next meeting is September the 17th, I think. Thank you very much.
Do we need to state anything for the record about Talg, Mary?
No, there was I issued the summons incorrectly, so it will have to bring it to council. My apologies.
Bit of work we don't have to do. Thank you very much.
Have a quick chat.
Have we got to do this?
No, we haven't.
Oh, we don't, right.
Because it was issued, the summons was issued to full council, if you look, rather than this